So we are in 4.1, number 10 for RSG. And the question is asking us to, I can't scroll. It says for each of the equations below, identify the first operation performed on the variable and also identify the last operation of the variable. Then determine the first step that would take the place when solving and the last step that would take place solving. If needed, solve and check your solution. So we have done this in class and we kind of use the operation of SADMAP and stuff like that. So I just kind of wanted to go through and make sure that you are all comfortable doing this. So the very first thing that I actually would do here is multiply out. Some people would actually divide by 5 or like leave that 5 there. But after polling you guys, I know that the first thing that you want to do is just distribute out. So I'm going to distribute out first. So here's my equation. So it goes 5 parentheses 2/3 k minus 8 equals to 40. And some of you are really intimidated by that fraction. Don't worry. In equations, they're actually not easier to deal with. They're a little bit more kind to deal with in equations than just adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing them, right? So the very first thing I'm going to do is just multiply out by 5. Just to distribute out. So if you remember, when you multiply fractions, it's numerator times numerator. So that's going to be 10 over 3. There is an invisible 1 underneath that 5. So 1 times 3 is 3. And then minus 40 equals to 40, right? Okay, so now I'm going to start solving. So what's the first thing that's happening to k here? Well, it's being multiplied by 10/3. So I'm going to put multiply by 10/3. Okay. And then what's going to happen is we're going to subtract 40. So we're going to put subtract 40. Trying to use different colors so you guys can all see how that works. And remember, we talked about how whenever you're solving an equations, you always do it in the inverse and reverse order, meaning the last thing that you are doing to the x or the variable, if we were simplifying, is actually the very first thing that we're going to do here. So we're going to take care of that 40. But instead of subtracting 40, we're going to inverse. We're going to use his inverse operation. So if I said, hey, how do you undo subtracting 40? And you would say, oh, you'd have to add 40. I'd say, exactly. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do here. We're going to add 40 to both sides. So when I add 40 to this side, and we always have to do whatever we do on one side, we do the other. If I add 40 here and I'd say, hey, let's subtract 40 and then add 40, and you'd be like, oh, that cancels. It's a 0. They undo each other. That's exactly what inverse means. Inverse means to undo. Okay. So if I messed up a room, most likely I would have to undo that mess. So what is left? Well, 10/3 k equals to 80. Okay. And then I would have to deal with this guy. The last step is going to be the first step. So how do you undo multiply by 10/3? And you would say, oops, why did I put 30? 10/3, right? So I'd say, okay, well, how do you undo multiplication? You would say, oh, you divide, right? And I'd say, yeah, that's right. But remember that when you're dividing by a fraction, you're really multiplying by the reciprocal. So here's my little guy. So instead of multiplying, right, we're going to divide by 10/3, which also means to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so what does that mean? What do you mean by multiply by the reciprocal? So first I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to put these guys in parentheses. And my little guy is not catching up. Let me try to sync really quick. Oh, there it goes. So when we're dividing by a fraction, we're really multiplying by the reciprocal. So reciprocal means that you're going to make your fraction do a handstand, meaning the top is the bottom and the bottom is the top. So I'm going to multiply this by 10/3. And hopefully you see what happens as these two things. Did I do that right? No, I'm going to multiply by 3/10. I'm so sorry. What am I doing? Yes, Miss Johnson makes mistakes, actually. Okay, so we're going to multiply by the handstand, meaning the 10 is now on the bottom. Your numerator is your denominator, and your denominator is now your numerator. So if you see, do you guys all see what's going to happen here? And some of you are like, yeah, I see it. 10 divided by 10 becomes 1. And 3 divided by 3 becomes 1. So this is just the number 1, Miss Johnson. Yes, this is just the number 1. So this is my big pretend 1 here. So all that's left is 1 times k, or just k, equals to, now here I'm going to divide out a little bit. I see 80 divided by 10 is 8, and 8 times 3 is 24. So my answer is 24. Okay, so again, this is the redemption chapter, right? So the redemption chapter means that I can check my answer. So I'm going to take my 24 and plop him in right there and see if he's right. Okay, so this is me checking now. Okay, so first I'm going to just copy the equation, the original equation. Okay, let this guy catch up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just going to take this 24, literally I'm going to copy and paste it because I can. I just actually like doing that because then you guys will see. I can just take him and put him in there. It doesn't really fit, but that's okay. Oh, I get my point, right? Okay, so then I'm going to simplify this and see if I can make it work a little bit. So it's asking for 2/3 of 24. Or I'm going to divide this 24 out by this 3, leaving an 8. And 2 times 8 is 16 minus 8 times 5. And then 16 minus 8 is just 8. And then 8 times 5 is 40. So does 40 equal to 40? Is this true? Yes, it's true. And then Miss Johnson shows her big smiley face because she knows that she's right. And so this is an awesome, this is why we call it the redemption chapter, because you can check every single one of your answers on the test and you would know that it is right. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you.